I learned to make myself mathematics the summer I turned 26. Simple equation: 60 families times average gossip per family equals 360 reasons to disappear. I'd become very good at subtraction. The morning of the summer social, I stood before my mirror and braided my hair without looking at my reflection. A practiced ritual. The mirror told truth. And truth was what I'd learned to avoid. Plain face, too tall. The kind of unfortunate looking that makes people avert their eyes and thank God they weren't born me. Through my window, I could see the town square transforming. Lanterns hung from posts. Tables arranged in careful rows. The Anderson sisters were already there, giggling and practicing their flirting. Their pretty faces catching the early light like flowers turning toward sun. I remembered being 17 and still believing, before the whispers calcified into truth. That had been 9 years ago. A lifetime. I selected my dress from the wardrobe, the gray one. Not the blue. Blue draws eyes. Gray disappears into shadows, into wallpaper, into the background where I belonged. I'd learned that lesson young. Visibility equaled pain. My strategy for the social was mapped out with military precision. Arrive late, after the initial greetings. Stand behind the McCaffrey wagon where the shadows pooled deepest. Leave during the first dance, when everyone was too occupied to notice one woman slipping away into darkness. Invisibility was safety. Invisibility was survival. I thought about my youngest sister's wedding 3 months prior. Mama had stood beside her, beaming. One arm around Sarah's waist. I'd watched from the back of the church. After the ceremony, I'd approached to offer congratulations. Mama's eyes had slid past me like I was glass, like I was air, like I was already gone. That was the moment I understood. I wasn't just unmarried. I was unmothered, too. Sarah was 19. My other sisters had married at 18 and 20. All of them younger than me. All of them mothers now. All of them proof of what I wasn't, 26 years old. In a frontier town of 60 families. That's not an age. It's a verdict. I picked up my shawl from the bed, the familiar weight of it like armor. Like a shield I'd worn so long it had molded to my shape. The fabric was worn at the edges. Comfortable. Safe. Like everything in my small, carefully controlled life. One more social. One more day of practiced invisibility. I'd survived 26 years of whispers, of averted eyes, of being the cautionary tale mothers use to make their daughters grateful. At least you're not like Eleanor Hartley, they'd say. At least you have prospects. I could survive one more afternoon. I was wrong about that, but I didn't know it yet. Didn't know that this particular afternoon would crack open everything I'd built, every wall I'd constructed, every truth I'd accepted about who I was and what I deserved. I picked up my shawl and headed for the door, my footsteps the only sound in the quiet house, the house I'd inherited from my father, the house I'd die in, alone, with 60 families counting the days until they could whisper about that too. One more social, I told myself, just one more, but I need to go back to when it started. To the Tuesday morning, 3 months before the social, when everything I believed about myself started to crack. I was in the general store, mid-morning, when the light was harsh and honest. I'd come for fabric the cheapest brown cotton, because brown was practical, and practical was all I could afford to be. I was running my fingers over the bolt when a voice spoke behind me. "Miss Hartley, that blue would suit you better." I froze. Miss Hartley, not Eleanor, in that pitying tone. Not silence, Miss Hartley. Like I was a lady. Like I mattered. I turned. Jackson Montgomery stood 3 feet away, hat in his hands, looking at me like I was someone worth looking at. I knew who he was. Everyone knew Jackson Montgomery. Educated back east at some fancy college whose name I couldn't pronounce. Richest ranch in 3 territories. Land that stretched so far you could ride for a day and still be on his property. Handsome enough that women invented reasons to visit his ranch, a borrowed recipe to return. A lost handkerchief to inquire about. Anything for 5 minutes of his attention. Men like him didn't see women like me. They looked through us like window glass. Transparent and forgettable. I prefer practicality, Mr. Montgomery, I said. My voice came out colder than I intended. Defense mechanism. Freeze them before they can freeze you. Beauty can be practical, too. I waited for the laugh. The moment when the joke would land. When he'd glance at whoever put him up to this cruel bit of theater. It didn't come. His face stayed steady. Serious. Kind. "I'll take the brown," I told Mrs. Patterson, who'd appeared at my elbow like gossip always does. Hovering and watchful, he tipped his hat. An actual tip, the kind reserved for ladies at church socials, for respectable women. For people who mattered. "Good day, Miss Hartley." Then he walked away, leaving me standing with brown fabric in my shaking hands. Mrs. Patterson leaned close, her breath smelling of peppermint and malice. "Don't get ideas. Dear, men like that are just being polite. I bought the brown. I always bought the brown. But that night, I dreamed in blue. Dreamed of fabric the color of summer sky. Of being someone who could wear color without apology. Of being seen without shame. I woke up angry at myself for dreaming at all. It happened 3 more times that first month. The hat tip, the Miss Hartley. The way his eyes stayed on mine instead of sliding away like everyone else's did. The 4th time. I couldn't bear it anymore. I saddled my father's old mare before dawn. Papa had been dead 5 years, but I kept his horse, kept his saddle. Kept the things that reminded me someone had once loved me without conditions. The ride to the Montgomery Ranch took an hour, the morning air sharp and clean. My heart hammering, not from exertion, but from what I was about to do. I would end this before it began. Before hope could take root. Before I could be hurt again. His ranch spread before me, neat and prosperous, everything in its place. I found him by the corral, working with a young stallion, patient and steady. "Mr. Montgomery." He turned, surprised but not displeased. "Miss Hartley, this is unexpected. You should know what people say about me." The words rushed out, rehearsed and desperate. Plain face. Too tall, the girl no man wants. I'm 26 and unmarried, which in this town makes me a failure and a warning. So whatever kindness you think you're showing, you can stop. I'm not a charity case. Silence. The kind that feels like falling. Then he asked the question that would haunt me. Do you believe what they say? Or do you just believe they have the right to say it? I had no answer. Didn't want to find one. I rode home in silence. His question rode with me. It's still riding with me now. He should have stopped after my warning. Should have understood I was saving him from embarrassment, from association with failure, from the weight of other people's judgment. He didn't. The next Sunday. He tipped his hat at church. The Sunday after that, and the next. Like my words had been wind. Like my warning had been noise. Like I hadn't given him a perfect exit from whatever this was. I started noticing things I didn't want to notice. The way he treated his ranch hands not like property, but like people. Calling them by name. Asking about their families, listening when they spoke. The way he knelt down to talk to children. Getting to their eye level instead of towering above them the way most men did. The way he helped old Mrs. Chen carry her packages from the mercantile without being asked, without fanfare, without expecting gratitude or recognition. I told myself I wasn't watching for these things. Told myself I didn't care. Told myself that noticing was different from hoping, and hoping was dangerous. And I'd given up dangerous years ago, but I'd started shopping on Thursdays. The same day his wagon appeared in town, I told myself it was coincidence. I was very good at lying to myself by then. Had years of practice. The Thursday it happened, I was at the creek crossing, letting Papa's mare drink. The water ran clear and cold, mountain runoff still carrying the memory of snow. I heard hoofbeats and knew without turning who it would be. "Fine day," he said, dismounting to let his horse drink alongside mine. "Fair enough. Heard the widow Morrison's cow got into your garden. Ate half your vegetables." I'd been livid about that. 3 hours of work destroyed in 20 minutes of bovine enthusiasm. News travels. Small town. Too small. He smiled at that. Actually smiled, like I'd said something clever instead of bitter. "I fixed her fence. Cow won't get out again." "That's kind of you." Seemed neighborly. We stood there, 2 people watering horses, talking about nothing, about everything. The conversation was so normal it hurt. When was the last time someone had just talked to me? Not at me. Not about me, but with me. Like I was a person worth conversing with. I laughed at something. He said can't even remember what now. But I remember the sound of my own laughter. Foreign and startling. Like a language I'd forgotten I could speak. He looked surprised, too. Pleased. That's when I heard the whispers from the road above us. 3 women on their way to town. Watching us. Judging, calculating. By sunset. The whole town would know Eleanor Hartley and Jackson Montgomery had been seen alone together at the creek. I should go. I said, of course. But neither of us moved for a long moment. The horses drank. The creek ran. The world kept turning. I rode away first. Couldn't bear to be the one left watching him leave. That night, I caught myself humming while making supper. Stopped immediately. Humming was dangerous. Humming meant happiness. And happiness was the cruelest joke of all. I forced myself to remember the whispers. Remember my place. Remember that men like Jackson Montgomery might be kind, might be decent, might treat everyone with respect. But they didn't marry women like me. They couldn't afford to. The town made its position clear 2 weeks later. I heard about the town council meeting from Mrs. Patterson, who took particular pleasure in delivering bad news like it was a gift. "Special session," she said, examining the thread I was purchasing with unnecessary attention. "Concerned citizens. Seems some folks think Mr. Montgomery is being taken advantage of by a desperate woman." She didn't look at me when she said it. Didn't have to. I paid for the thread with shaking hands and walked out into the bright afternoon, the sun mocking me with its cheerfulness. The whole town had gathered to discuss me like I was a problem to be solved, a danger to be managed, a trap to be avoided. I shouldn't have been surprised. This was the same town that had been whispering about me for 26 years. Why stop now? But I'd started to hope. That was my mistake. Hope was dangerous. Hope was the crack that let the pain in. I made it home before I cried. Small victory. The knock came at dawn the next day. I knew who it was before I opened the door. Mama stood on my threshold, wearing her church dress and her judgment face. She hadn't been to my house in 6 months. Hadn't looked me in the eye since Sarah's wedding. "May I come in?" I stepped aside. She entered like she was inspecting, finding my small house, wanting... It probably was. I'd never been good at the things women were supposed to be good at. Keeping house, staying pretty, landing a husband. "You need to stop encouraging him," she said without preamble. "You're embarrassing this family." The words landed like familiar blows. I'd heard worse. But there's a particular pain in being unloved by the person who's supposed to love you past reason, past logic. past the verdict of mirrors and men. I haven't encouraged anything. Mama, you exist. For a man like him, that's encouragement enough. He's trying to be kind. Eleanor, Christian charity. You're mistaking kindness for something it's not. Christian charity? The words sat between us like stones. I see, I said. Do you? Because people are talking, and when they talk about you, they talk about us. Your sisters have children now, reputations to protect. We can't have me embarrassing you further. I understand. She looked at me then. Really looked. I saw something flicker in her eyes. Regret, maybe. Or recognition of the wound she'd just opened. But she didn't take the words back. Didn't soften them. I'm your mother. I want what's best for you. No, Mama. You want me quiet? There's a difference. She left without another word. I poured coffee with hands that had forgotten how to be steady. The cup was chipped on one side. I always drank from the chipped side. Seemed appropriate somehow. The next Saturday, I went to the general store for flour. Basic necessity. Couldn't avoid town forever, though I'd gotten good at trying. Jackson was there. Saw me, smiled. I nodded, brief and cold, and turned to the flour sacks. Then she walked in. Victoria Montgomery. Jackson's sister from Boston. I'd heard she was visiting. Of course. The whole town had been preparing for weeks, cleaning and primping like visiting royalty was arriving instead of just a woman from back east. She was beautiful. That kind of effortless, educated beauty that comes from good breeding and better money. Silk dress in pale green, hat with actual feathers, gloves. In a frontier general store. She wore gloves. Everything I wasn't stood in the doorway, making me aware of every thread in my mended dress, every callus on my ungloved hands, every inch of height that made me wrong. Jackson smiled at her. Victoria, you're up early. Mrs. Patterson said you were here. I needed your help with something urgent. She took his arm, not grabbed, took, like it was hers to take, like he was hers to claim. Her eyes passed over me, not cruel, not even unkind, just nothing. Like I was furniture, like I was wallpaper, like I was exactly what the town had always said. I was beneath notice. Jackson, she said, her voice honey and silk and everything mine wasn't. Come along. He glanced back at me. I looked away. Couldn't bear whatever I might see in his face. Pity. Or worse. Relief at being rescued from an awkward situation. Every woman in the store watched. The silence was deafening. I paid for my flour and walked home. My back straight, even though everything in me wanted to curl inward. To make myself smaller. To disappear completely. That night, I took out my old traveling case from the back of the wardrobe. Didn't pack it yet. Just looked at it. Reminded myself I knew how to leave. Had always known. Leaving was survival. Staying was risk. And I'd learned long ago that women like me couldn't afford to risk. The storm came 3 days later. I was checking the fence line on my property's eastern edge, where the wood had started to rot and needed replacing. The sky had been blue when I started. Frontier weather changes fast, and I should have known better. The first drops hit like warnings. Then the sky opened. I ran for the old line shack, barely standing, but better than nothing. Pushed through the door and stopped. Jackson was already there. Of course he was. The universe had a sense of humor about these things. Miss Hartley, He stood quickly, like a gentleman greeting a lady in a parlor instead of two soaked people in a falling-down shack in the middle of nowhere. "Mr. Montgomery!" Rain pounded the roof. The sound filled the space between us, loud and relentless. "Checking fence lines," he said. Same. One room, one bench, nowhere to hide. Water dripped through the roof in 3 places. I counted them. Counted anything to avoid counting the distance between us, which was shrinking because the dry spots were limited. "You're soaked?" he said. Astute observation. He shrugged out of his coat. "Here. I'm fine." "You're shivering." I said I'm fine. He held it out anyway. Patient, steady, waiting. I took it. Small surrender. The coat was warm from his body, smelled like leather and sage and something I couldn't name. Safety. Maybe. Or danger. Sometimes those smell the same. We sat on opposite ends of the bench. The silence stretched. I could hear my own heartbeat. Or maybe it was the rain. Hard to tell the difference. "Your sister is lovely," I said. Don't know why. Needed to fill the quiet. Maybe. She is very proper. And that's one word for it. She seems concerned about you. He was quiet for a moment. Thunder rolled overhead. "She thinks I'm making a mistake." There it was. The truth. The confirmation of what I already knew. "She's probably right," I said. "Is she?" I looked at him then. Really looked. His eyes were steady on mine. Serious. Questioning. "Why?" The word escaped before I could stop it. "Why speak to me when you could have anyone? Your sister, the whole town. They're all right. You know. About me. About what I am. And what are you? Plain, tall, unfortunate looking, 26 and unmarried. A failure, a warning, everything a man like you should avoid. That's what they say you are." I asked what you are. I didn't have an answer for that. Didn't know how to be anything other than what I'd been told I was for 26 years. "You want to know why?" He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Because when I speak to you, I hear the truth. Everyone else tells me what they think I want to hear. They perform, they calculate. They smile and simper and agree with everything I say because of what I have, what I own, what I can give them." He paused. Thunder again. Closer. "You don't do that. You tell me what you actually think. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know what it's like to be surrounded by people who see you as a prize? To be one instead of a person to be known? No." I whispered. "I don't know what that's like." "You're real, Eleanor, in a world of performance and pretense. You're honest. That's not plain. That's precious. My name." He'd said my name, not Miss Hartley. "Eleanor." The rain drummed harder. I was crying and didn't know when I'd started. He didn't look away. Didn't offer false comfort. Just sat there, steady, letting me break. "I don't know how to be someone's truth," I said. "You already are." Thunder cracked. I startled. His hand moved toward mine, hovering in the space between us, almost touching. Not quite. I pulled back. Safety, self-protection, the habits of a lifetime. He pulled back, too. Respected the distance I needed. We sat like that until the storm passed. 2 people almost touching, almost trusting, almost believing that something impossible might be possible after all. When the rain stopped, we walked back separately. Him first, me 20 minutes later. Propriety. Even in wilderness. But something had shifted. I'd asked. He'd answered. And neither of us could pretend we were still strangers. His sister found me at the creek 2 weeks later. I was washing clothes, my hands red from the cold water and lye soap. Practical work. Familiar. Safe. Eleanor Hartley. I looked up. Victoria Montgomery stood on the bank above me. Pale green dress, perfect. Not a hair out of place. She looked like she'd stepped out of a painting. I looked like what I was, a woman doing laundry in a creek. Miss Montgomery, may I speak with you? It wasn't really a question. She was already picking her way down the bank, careful with her skirts. I stood, wiping my wet hands on my apron, waiting. She got straight to the point. I appreciated that. At least, my brother is making a mistake. I see. I don't think you do. Jackson he's kind. Too kind sometimes. He sees the best in people, sees potential where there is none. It's an admirable quality, but it makes him vulnerable to being taken advantage of. The words were carefully chosen, polite, devastating. I haven't asked him for anything. Miss Montgomery, not yet, but you will. Women like you always do. Women like you. The phrase hung in the air between us. I don't know what you think I am. I said quietly, but I'm not trying to trap your brother. Aren't you? Then why do you time your shopping trips to coincide with his? Why do you position yourself where he'll see you? Why do you encourage his attention? I don't. He's lonely. That's all this is. Loneliness makes people do foolish things. Makes them see what isn't there. She stepped closer. Her perfume smelled expensive, like roses and money. Go back east with me when I leave next month. I'll set you up with a teaching post. Good pay, respectable work, a fresh start where no one knows you. It was kind, in its way, kinder than cruelty. An escape, a solution, a way out that let everyone save face. That's generous, I said. I'm trying to help, both of you. He'll recover. Men always do. And you'll have a chance at a real life instead of this. She gestured at the creek. The laundry. Me. At everything I was and wasn't. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. He's planning to ask you something. Soon. If you care about him at all, you'll leave before he can make that mistake. She left the way she came, perfect. Poised. Devastating. I went back to washing clothes. Plunged my hands into the cold water. Scrubbed until my knuckles bled. That night, I sat in my small house and thought about Boston. About teaching. About being somewhere no one knew me as the girl no man wanted. About starting over. The traveling case sat in my wardrobe, waiting. Leaving was looking more sensible by the day. I packed on the night before the summer social. Methodical, efficient. 2 dresses. My mother's Bible. The blue fabric I'd finally bought, but never used. Everything I owned fit in one case. A life of invisibility travels light. The plan was simple. Dawn staged to Denver. From there, anywhere. Teaching post. Maybe. Somewhere far from whispers and judgment, and the weight of being known. The knock came near midnight. I knew who it was. Knew I shouldn't answer. Knew that opening the door would make leaving harder. I opened it anyway. Jackson stood on my threshold, hat in hands, looking tired and worried and real. May I come in? A man An unmarried woman. Midnight? Scandalous. Yes. He saw the traveling case immediately. Saw my face. Put the pieces together. You're leaving. Not a question. I nodded anyway. Where? Does it matter? To me, it does. I wanted to be angry. Wanted to tell him he had no right to come here, to care, to make this harder than it already was. But I was too tired for anger, too tired for pretense. Your sister made me an offer. Teaching post back east. Fresh start? It's generous. It's exile. It's practical. It's running. Maybe running is the smart choice. He was quiet for a long moment. Then what are you running from? You know what? Say it. This town, the judgment. Your sister's pity, my mother's shame, all of it. And me. The question sat between us like a lit match. Yes, I whispered. You too. Why? I laughed. It came out broken. Because you're going to ask me something, and I'm going to have to say yes or no. And either answer destroys me. How, if I say no, I lose the only person who's ever made me feel like I matter. If I say yes, my voice cracked. If I say yes, I get to taste what it feels like to be chosen. And then one day, maybe a year from now, maybe 5, you'll wake up and see me the way they do. And I'll have to survive being unchosen after knowing what it felt like to be wanted. That pain would kill me. Better to leave now. Better to never know. He crossed the room in 3 strides, took my hands in his. His hands were warm, calloused, real. Look at me. I couldn't. If I looked, I'd break completely. Eleanor, look at me. I looked. I can't promise you won't be hurt. Can't promise forever or certainty or any of the things you deserve. All I can promise is this: I will choose you every morning. I wake up every day, every moment. That's all anyone can promise. Daily choice, present tense. What if it's not enough? What if it is? I was crying. Couldn't stop. 26 years of pain, of being unwanted, of being told I was wrong and broken and unlovable, all of it pouring out in ugly, honest tears. He didn't leave, didn't offer false comfort, just stood there, holding my hands, steady as stone, letting me break. Stay, he said quietly. Come to the social tomorrow. Let me ask you what I want to ask. Let yourself answer honestly. Whatever you decide, I'll accept, but give yourself the chance to choose instead of running. I don't know if I'm brave enough. You rode to my ranch alone to warn me away. You're the bravest person I know. He left before dawn. Propriety again, even in crisis. I stood in my doorway, watching him go, his figure disappearing into the pre-dawn darkness. The traveling case was still packed. My feet were still planted. The sun was coming up on summer social day, and I didn't know which direction I'd be traveling when it set. But I knew I wouldn't run. Not yet. Not without seeing this through. Not without giving myself one chance to be brave. I went to the social in my gray dress. The traveling case sat at home. Still packed. Still waiting. An escape route if I needed it. But I'd promised him I'd come. Promised myself I'd see this through. The town square looked like celebration. Lanterns glowed in the growing dusk. Tables overflowed with food. Music started up, fiddle and guitar, and the sound of people determined to have a good time. I stood in my usual spot behind the McCaffrey wagon. Shadows pooled deep there, safe there. I could watch without being watched. Could disappear if I needed to. 200 people, maybe more. Every family in town, children running between tables, women gossiping in clusters, men discussing weather and crops and all the safe topics men discuss when they want to avoid saying what. They mean, I saw Jackson arrive, watched him search the crowd, prayed he wouldn't find me, prayed he would. He found me. His eyes met mine across the distance. Something passed between us. Question, answer, understanding, fear, all of it in one look. Then he started walking, straight through the crowd. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Every eye tracked his movement, watching where he was going, who he was seeking. I wanted to run. Couldn't move. He stopped in front of me. The crowd circled, sensing drama, hungry for spectacle. He knelt. The world went silent. Or maybe I just stopped hearing anything but my own heartbeat. Eleanor Catherine Hartley. My full name, clearly spoken, like something precious, like something worth honoring. Will you marry me? Simple question, impossible question. The question that would define everything that came after. I could feel 200 pairs of eyes on me, could hear the intake of breath, the shocked silence. The weight of collective judgment pressing down like physical force. Every wound in me screamed no. 26 years of whispers. Every disappointed look from my mother. Every pitying smile from my sisters. Every person who'd ever made me feel like I was less than wrong, unworthy. Victoria's voice in my memory. He'll recover. Men always do. Mrs. Patterson's warning, don't get ideas, dear. Mama's shame. You're embarrassing this family. The mirror's verdict, plain, tall, unfortunate looking. All of it telling me no. Telling me I didn't deserve this. Telling me to run. To hide. To protect what was left of my broken heart. But underneath all that noise, underneath 26 years of other people's opinions, there was a whisper. Small. Persistent. What if you are enough? What if you always were? I looked at Jackson. Really looked. Saw him kneeling in front of 200 people, making himself vulnerable, making this choice public and permanent and real. He was shaking, barely noticeable. But I saw it. He was scared too. That's what decided me. Not the grand gesture, not the romance. The fact that he was scared and doing this anyway. The fact that he was choosing me, despite the cost, despite the town. Despite everything that said this was wrong, he was being brave. Maybe I could be brave too. Yes, the word came out quiet, but it came out, yes. I said again, louder, stronger. I took his hand, let him pull me to my feet. Stood in the center of the crowd, the exact place I'd spent 26 years avoiding and faced 200. Witnesses. The crowd erupted, shock, gasps, whispers turning to shouts, some celebrating, some scandalized. All of them watching the impossible become real. I heard my mother gasp. Heard Victoria's sharp intake of breath. Heard Mrs. Patterson's, well, I never heard it all and none of it. Because I was looking at Jackson. And he was looking at me. And for the first time in 26 years, I wasn't trying to disappear. I was standing in the center of the town square, visible and chosen and choosing. And it felt like flying, like falling, like both at once, like terror and freedom wearing the same face. We married 3 weeks later. Simple ceremony. Nothing fancy. Didn't need fancy. I walked myself down the aisle, seemed right somehow. Claiming myself before giving myself. The whole town came, some celebrating, some still shocked, all of them witnesses to the impossible. Victoria left for Boston the day before the wedding. Didn't say goodbye, sent a stiff note wishing us well. I understood. Some people can't accept what doesn't fit their understanding of the world. Life on the ranch surprised me. I'd expected to feel like an imposter, like I was playing at being a wife, waiting to be found out. Instead, I found partnership. He taught me ranching how to check cattle, mend fence, read weather signs in the sky. I managed the books, the accounts, the practical details of running a business, different strengths. Equal work. The town's response was mixed. Some never came around. Mrs. Patterson still sniffed when I passed, like I'd committed some crime against nature. But respect replaced pity in most eyes. Not acceptance, exactly, but acknowledgement. I could live with that. Mama came to the ranch 6 weeks after the wedding. Showed up at dawn, unannounced, wearing her church dress and carrying a basket of preserves. Eleanor. Mama. I let her in, poured coffee. We sat at my kitchen table, my table, in my house, in the life I'd chosen. I always knew you'd find someone. She said, the lie hung between us. We both knew the truth. I could have called her on it, could have reminded her of every disappointed look, every moment of shame, every time she'd made me feel like a burden instead of a daughter. I didn't. I found myself. Mama. He just helped me remember where to look. She was quiet for a long time. Then, the preserves are from my garden. Your favorite. It wasn't an apology. Wasn't acknowledgement of the wounds she'd inflicted. But it was what she could offer. And maybe that had to be enough. I took the preserves, gave her coffee. Let her see my life, my home, my choice. She left after an hour. I stood in the doorway, watching her go. The morning sun warm on my face. Some wounds, scar. That's not tragedy. That's proof of survival. The town social came around again last week. A year since Jackson knelt in front of 200 people and asked me to marry him. We went together. I wore blue this time. The fabric I'd finally used to make a dress that actually fit. I didn't stand behind the McCaffrey wagon, didn't hide in shadows, didn't make myself small. I stood where I chose to stand, talked to who I chose to talk to, danced when I wanted, left when I was ready. The whispers are still there. They'll always be there. Small towns have long memories and short supply of entertainment, but the whispers don't live in me anymore. Don't define me. Don't control where I stand or how I move through the world. I learned something important this year, something worth all the pain it took to learn it. Love didn't make me worthy. I was always worthy. Love just gave me the courage to believe it. I walk through town square now, hand in hand with my husband, and I don't make myself small. I learned that dignity isn't given by others. It's claimed by ourselves. And the bravest thing a woman can do isn't just survive being unwanted. It's choosing to believe she deserves to be loved. They called me the ugly duckling. For 26 years, I believed them. Then I learned something they couldn't teach me. I was never a duckling at all. Just a woman who needed to believe in herself as much as one good man believed in me. And that belief, that daily choosing of myself, by myself, for myself, that was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. The summer social happens every year. I don't stand in the back anymore. I don't stand in the front either. I stand where I choose to stand. And that choice, that small, daily act of claiming space, is its own kind of love story.